Hello, Seamus McMahon here, founder and owner of Brehon Brewhouse here in the outskirts of Carrickmacross in County Monaghan. At the top of the lane here is County Louth, where the old pale ended, and here we stand in Ulster. So here in Brehon Brewhouse we've got three enterprises actually. The first one being the dairying, which is third generation. McMahons have farmed here for 12 generations. The second one being the brewing, which was set up here in 2014 as the second enterprise. And the third one is the tourist aspect, which we enjoy sharing with everybody. So first of all, I'll show you the dairying myself. Like every good idea it happened at one drunken night. So we're at a dinner party, myself and my wife, and we were introduced to craft beer by a mutual friend. And I suppose at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, it sounded like a wonderful idea. At 6 o'clock in the morning, milking the next morning, it didn't sound like a wonderful idea. So I suppose the seed was sown and we decided to explore it, went and done a brewing course, sourced some equipment and started off in 2014. With a small primitive 12-barrel plant, and we set the goalposts for our first brew, which was called Festival, for the Carrickmacross Beer Festival. And we launched our beer in June of that year. And I suppose what happened was we were a brewery with no beer. We ran out of beer. The beer was quite successful, but since that we've never ran out of beer. And I suppose the journey has taken us from a 10-barrel plant to a 30-barrel with all the mod cons. At the minute we export 75% of our beer mostly to Europe, and recently we started into the United States. So we've got an importer and we've got a network of distributors across the States of America. So Brehon is after Brehon Law. Brehon Law would have been an old ancient unwritten law which superseded English law by millennia. So under the patronage of a Brehon, who was a judge or a justice, every clan was entitled to brew and distill their own beer and whiskey. So here at Brehon Brewhouse we're taking back that unique privilege. We're McMahons, and every county in Ulster would have had a clan. And the McMahons would be synonymous with County Monaghan. So at the top of the lane here, we're just sitting at the very tip of County Monaghan. And English law would have started in Dublin Castle and extended to Carlingford in an area called the Pale. So it was the first part of Ireland to fall to British rule, and this last part of Ulster is the last part of Ireland to be still under British rule. So here we are in the dairy enterprise. We've got 120 cows and we cow seasonally. So seasonal milk is basically milking all year round. So we have the same amount of milk Christmas Day as we would have in the middle of the summer. The reason being that we've got a contract with the local creamery to produce cream and liquid milk. The cream goes to Bailey's and the rest of it goes for processing. So 120 cows, 60 calved in the spring and 60 calved in the autumn. And now we're in the middle of the spring calving. So come with me and I'll show you the new arrivals. Here we have some of our new arrivals from the spring herd. These wee lassies will hopefully grow into the future milking cows. They're all bucket fed, they're fed with whole milk, and they're reared to a 2-year-old. In 6 weeks' time, when the weather improves, they will be out on pasture. We try to produce most of our milk here in the dairy off grazed grass. It's the cheapest and it's obviously the most sustainable way of producing milk. Here as well, the dairy and the brewery tie in pretty well together. The spent grains are fed to the cows, which produces the milk. The waste water goes into a slurry tank and it's spread on the land to produce the grass. Most of the water is harvested into an underground tank and it's used then for washing down both the brewery and the dairy and for giving the cows water. So we have 120 cows here on the farm. So here we have the spring calving cows, and they're here in their winter accommodation because it's too wet to get them out on the grass today. Normally this time of the year in March the cows will be out running around in the green fields of Monaghan. They're on at the minute, their diet here is a mixed diet. Basically it's 80% of pickled grass, so it's called silage, and there's 20% of concentrates mixed through it in a diet feeder. So it's a full diet for them, and as well as that they're sitting here on comfort mats and they've got comfort cubicles. Here we have the finished product, whole milk straight from the cow. Sláinte go maith. So the real reason we're here today is obviously to talk about the Brehon Brewhouse. And what we'll do now is we'll take you over to Dave, who is brewing up a storm in the brew house, and he'll go through the full process. From there then we will go into the tap room where James will go through the tasting, and I'll sit back and enjoy. Follow me please. The difference between the two enterprises is obviously the milk is produced here on the farm and is collected by the creamery. We get a price and we cry about it, typical farmers. On the other side here, we produce a primary product, beer, but we have to go to the other stage to market it, and I'll sell it on and constantly searching out markets. So we started off, I said, with festival beer for the Carrick Cross Beer Festival, and then we introduced a blonde ale because I suppose Monaghan would not be well known for its craftiness, and I suppose in this area people would still drink quite bland beer. So we introduced a blonde beer and a lager to try to satisfy the local market.
My name is David Guilfoyle, I'm the head brewer here in Brehon Brewhouse, and today we're brewing a double batch of our Killarney Red Ale. We're mashing in our first beer, and in a little while I'll show you where we're boiling our second beer. The auger, so this tube here has a screw inside, so we load our malt into the hopper here, and then the screw will take it up into the mash tun where it's mixed with water, the hidden temperature is 66 degrees, so we can convert our starch into sugars. So the malt we're using, our base malt today is pale ale malt from Loughren Family Farms in Dundalk, grown locally. Where possible, we use locally supplied products. I suppose because we don't mill grain freshly here on site, milled grain can have a shorter shelf life, so being able to use a local supplier allows us to keep our stock levels low and fresh. So I'm just going to put this in. Well, this is mashing in. We're feeding the grain up this pipe here, where it's been mixed with water and stirred and agitated inside the mash tun. Just making sure the last of the grain is fed into the hopper, and once this is done, we can start a mashing process where we can get a conversion from starch into sugar, which we're going to then use to make the alcohol for the beer. So this is our mash tun. This is where our water and grain have come to mix. We mix the grain and the water at about 3 parts water to 1 part grain. That allows the enzymes in the grain to get around the starch and break the starch down into sugars. A lighter beer, we mash at a lower temperature, we get a lot of simple sugars. And for heavier beers, we mash at a higher temperature. This is currently agitating. It'll agitate here for 45 minutes, and then we allow it just to rest, and then we'll recirculate. So on the bottom of this tank, there's a perforated floor. The liquid will come down through that. We circulate back on top, and then the grain husk itself acts as a filter for smaller starch granules and stuff, so we get a much clearer wort sugary liquid, which we call a wort, to pass over to our kettle. When we're going over to our kettle, we bring 3,300 litres of wort here, and we begin the boiling process. At the start of the boiling process, we add hops. So just to give you a little idea of what hops are, these are hops in their pelletized form. Hops give bitterness to the beer when they're added at an early stage. This will provide bitterness, but they also provide shelf life and stability for the beer. Act as an antibody in the beer to help against any microbial activity. Our late addition gives aroma to the beer, and this is our late addition now for our first brew. These hops will give a nice earthy and kind of herby flavour to the red ale.
The grains arrive and it comes in a ground form. So basically it's like a dried porridge. It's just barley, and it's mashed through the auger, and it's mixed with boiling hot water. And the idea, obviously the object is to get the sugars out of the barley and produce alcohol. Ireland is as you can see today, it's almost too wet to grow hops commercially anymore. And so they're all mostly from the New World, either from America, New Zealand, some of them come from Eastern Europe as well.
Now that our boil is finished, the next stage of the process is to whirlpool the beer. So what we do, we circulate the beer around for 10 minutes, and then we leave it for 10 minutes to rest. In that time, the protein that has boiled out of the wort and the solids from the hops form in a little cone, which then will sit at the bottom of the kettle, and we'll draw away from that. Again, bringing through a clear liquid, leaving all the solids behind. So now that our 10-minute rest is finished, our next step is to send our wort into the tank where we can pitch some yeast, and the yeast will eat those sugars and create alcohol. So because our wort is sitting at 99 degrees, we pass it through a plate heat exchanger here. In 99 degree wort running against 2 degree water, opposite direction. And what we'll get then in the tank, we'll get wort at 20 degrees, which is ideal to pitch the yeast. And we'll have recycled 80 degree hot water, which we'll use then for sparge in our next brew. The boiling has sterilised the wort, so everything after this step has to be highly sterile. So anything we're touching, anything we're using, we're spraying with disinfectant acid. So I'm just going to pitch the yeast out. So now that the yeast is pitched, all that's left to really do in the process is to clean out the kettle when it's finished, and we can start bringing our next beer across. The beer itself will take about 5 days for the yeast to ferment all the alcohol, and then we can condition it and get it ready for packaging. So let's go and try a beer that we've already made. So this is another one of our beers. This is our blonde ale. Would have been fermenting again for 5 or 6 days and then conditioned for the last 2 weeks. So as you can see, it's much brighter and ready to send out. So that's it for me, folks. I'll leave you over to James to try some of our beers. Lodge.
We set up here in 2014, and we wanted to keep the uniqueness we wanted to create a unique brewery, so most of the breweries, I suppose, are in industrial units, so we wanted to keep it here on the farm. So we wanted the farm on one side and the brewery on the other side. So the sheds here, we converted them from a machinery shed and a calf rearing facility, and we've expanded from that. So when we started off first, it was basically sheds that were converted from farming enterprise to a brewing enterprise. Brewing is basically, it's 4 different ingredients. You've got water, which is from deep bore here on the farm. You've got yeast, you've got hops, and you've got malts. The malts, again, everything is trying to be sustainable. We're quite well known for our stouts. The water here is quite harsh and hard, so it's limey, and it produces pretty good stouts. And also, we also do a barrel age program with the local distillery, Great Northern Distillery in Dundalk. We take their barrels out fresh, emptied from whiskey, and we fill them with our own beers for 3 to 4 months, and then we empty them and blend the beers, and it gives us imperial stouts. And then the barrels go back to Great Northern Distillery and they're refilled with whiskey, and it gives their whiskey a distinctive darkness. The tourist aspect of the business is something that we've looked at from the day one, and it's the reason why we kept the business on the farm. So we're quite unique. We've got the farm experience on one side and we've got the brewery experience on the other side. So a quick synopsis of what happens: people come in, so they get the brewing process, they can follow it right from the start right through to the finished product. And our tap room is quite unique. It's the old farmhouse, which where I was actually born, or my father was born, or my grandfather was born. We've also got an old farming cottage on the farm here, which was built in 1837. There's actually the stone. We explain actually a bit about the history of the brewery, what happened here during the famine, what estate the farm was on. So as you can see on our branding, it's Irish beer crafted in stories, and we like to tell people stories. We're here in the tasting room, the old farm cottage where the McMahons have been for a good few generations. Lots of large families reared in this room. We're here to do a bit of tasting. The most important part, I suppose, of the experience here in Brehon Brewhouse.
So we're going to try a range of our beers here today. We have some of our gluten-free beers. We have our core range of our red ale, blonde ale, and Ulster black, and we have some of our limited edition specials. We have our whiskey-aged stout and our newest release, the Braggot. It's a honey ale, basically. It's a cross between a mead and an ale. So we start with the blonde.
So all our beers have got a story to them. So we're basically Irish beer crafted in stories. Our labelling is all lino prints. They're all original pictures to a shot around the farm here.
So this is the blonde ale. This would have been the first beer we would have produced 10 years ago. Nothing too complex, but still with enough character to hold its own amongst any of the best beers in the country. It's 4.3%. It's quite a malt forward beer. It has a kind of a honey brioche bread kind of elements to it. Very light. As you can see, very light in colour, very easy to drink, but quite good during the summertime, wintertime, autumn time or springtime.
Sláinte.
Sláinte. So again, on the nose, you're getting that kind of honey and brioche. In the flavour then, you're getting more of that malt flavours, kind of almost touches of caramel, a little touch of spice from the hops. We use the Saz hop on this, the Czech Republic hop. Very easy to manage. It just gives that little spiciness to counteract the sweetness of the malt. Gives that bit of earthiness as well to it. We have quite some complex beers coming up. But this was kind of, the idea behind this beer was just to kind of introduce people slowly into the craft beer world. A lot of people will drink lager. This is kind of a little step up from lager, a bit more body, a bit more complexity. So it's, as I said, a good introduction beer to the brand and to our brewery.
As we call it, the trainer bra of craft beer, yeah, that's what we used to call it anyway. So the second one we're going to taste here is the Killarney Red. It's a traditional Irish red ale. So Killarney Red is after the parish here we live in. Red ale, same colours as our local football club, Killarney Red.
So Killarney meaning Killana, which is the Church of St. Edna. It's quite earthy. Yeah, rich is probably the best way to describe it. Again, like the blonde, it's quite a malt forward beer. Subtle touches of hops on the back end, all right. But again, it's very malt forward. Completely different from the blonde in terms that it's a richer kind of a flavour, whereas the blonde was light. And you're getting a bit of nutmeg, caramel, kind of subtle spices and notes of this. Again, it's only 4.5%, so it's quite easy to drink in. And again, very good all times of the year. It's refreshing enough that you can have it during the summer, but it's quite rich and decadent enough that you can have it during the winter as well.
I suppose if I was put on the spot and asked which is our favourite of our craft beer, I should have to say it's the Killarney Red. It's the one I was weaned on to drinking. Good red tradition of beers around Dundalk here, the local town. So Killarney Red would be my favourite.
The red ale is probably, at the moment, in terms of sales, probably our most popular beer at the moment.
Very big in America and the United States. We had it in the Epcot in Disney for a couple of years, and now it's made a transition across to Scandinavia. It's in the Monopoly stores across Sweden at the minute, and probably will head on towards Norway and maybe Finland in the next couple of months. So continuing with the stout team, we're on to our first of our imperials here. It's Cranbaha. So Cranbaha is the tree of life, and that's the symbol on all our merchandise.
So the roots is the present or the past, the trunk is the present, and the leaves are the future, and it's all intertwined. So basically the circle of life, tree of life. This one as well, we've aged it for 6 months in a whiskey barrel, and we get our whiskey barrels from Great Northern Distillery in Dundalk.
It's Mates program, isn't it? Like we do send get the barrels out fresh with whiskey in them. We age our beers in them for about 3 to 6 months. It gives us the flavour of the whiskey and some of the colouring from the wood. Send the barrels back empty, and they fill them back with whiskey again. So 7-Up, what are you 7-Up to here now, James?
10% ABV, and it's our second strongest beer in our portfolio. We're not allowed the strongest one for obvious reasons. This is kind of the epitome of decadence now. We're talking as complex as you can get. The beer itself, before it goes into the barrel, is quite complex. And once it hits the barrel and gets all those flavours and aromas from the wood, it goes on to a whole different level. So you're getting a lot of dark fruits on there, kind of a bit of licorice, kind of plum, raisin, and a kind of smokiness from the wood.
The whiskey's quite subtle in it, James, isn't it? Like you're not getting that borny whiskey feel, you're just getting that subtleness of the warmness of a country.
Yeah, just getting that little touch of warmth as it goes that back down your throat. It's almost like every sup is different. It's so complex with all the different flavours and even textures. It's so smooth.
I suppose the problem with it, it's so easy to drink. For 10%, like it just slips down. Like you know, the problem is like you're drinking probably the equivalent of a bottle of wine.
Exactly. Yeah. So
again, one to sip rather than the session.
I kind of want to share as well. You wouldn't put this on your own, maybe.
I don't think you'd share it, Jim.
No. Well, it's recommended to share, but if you want to keep it yourself, that's fine too.
Yeah, it's one to drink on your own, I think. The fire.
Fire on cold winter's night, or spring night, or summer night.
Quarter pud.
Yeah.
No one will see you.
Yeah, it's probably the beer that has earned us the title of Kings of Stout. Unlike some other breweries who bring their barrel-aged beers out seasonally, we have our barrel-aged beers out year-round. We have a barrel-aging program that we can empty our barrels on almost a quarterly basis. So all of our barrel-aged stouts are available all year round. So like a barrel-aged stout, it's not just for Christmas, it's for the whole year.
Future plans for Brehon Brewhouse is obviously to maintain our share of the market, probably increase it domestically and push on with exports. As I said, we export 75% of our products. A lot of it's going to America now at the minute, right across the States. And we've also got markets in France, Germany, Italy, and the Netherlands and Luxembourg. So yeah, it's probably to consolidate what we have and probably to expand into the international markets.